All right, guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, we go over an article titled "What Happens to Men Who Stay Bachelors Forever According to Science." And what's interesting about this article is it's written by a woman, and she does point out some good things, but she also points out you can see where her mind's kind of up and down on the subject. Maybe it's her own personal bias, I don't know, where she thinks there actually could be issues with men that stay bachelors forever. And I'm doing this because obviously a lot of you guys that watch me are single, and or many of you guys that aren't single, you're certainly hoping or taking action to become single one day because you're not very happy, which a lot of guys aren't, or should I say most guys in varying degrees are not happy being married. And as I said, this was written by a woman, and it's interesting because at some points she's definitely making a good case for things that make single guys happy. In other cases, other things she says maybe kind of questioning whether we're actually happy at all, or putting some kind of a little bit of a negative connotation on it. Because let's be honest here, by nature, women are the ones that want to settle and and have children and all that. And yes, there are definitely guys that want to settle and have kids, but it's obviously much more a female thing. But also, let's be honest here, over the last 4 decades, thanks to the you know what movement, it's definitely had its impression on men to start behaving not like men. So I'm going to go through this article here, and the article is, there's different segments here. So I'll read a segment, then comment, and so forth. So again, the article is "What Happens to Men Who Stay Bachelors Forever According to Science." And it starts out saying, men who never marry or have kids may not be as lonely as they seem. They seem, or people think. That's what I wonder. So starts saying, there is no perfect time to get married or have children, but when men follow through with both, it changes their lives forever. Absolutely it does. Likewise, when men opt out of becoming husbands and fathers, it can send their lives on a vastly different trajectory. But lifelong bachelors aren't all video game lovers with commitment phobias and intimacy issues like the movies might have you believe. The movies are a bunch of crap. I think I've made this quite clear in many videos. Movies and TV, what they try to project, it's somebody else's ideas on how things should be. And guys, people aren't buying it. And it isn't just about relationships or male nature or female nature. It's a lot of things. But in this regard, it's a bunch of crap, and we all know it. And if you don't know it, if you don't think that the movies and TV are a bunch of crap and how they project men and women and so forth, in relationships and dating, those type of things, just start watching these romantic comedies. See how men are portrayed. And it isn't just also movies and TV. It's also in commercials that you see all the time. It's also in music. It's really fascinating when you start paying attention. I've had guys I've talked to personally about this, and they weren't quite sure what I meant. And I just, hey, start watching shows. Pay attention, And after a while, they'd see it and say, you know what? There is something to what you're talking about. It's like, yeah, you're right. I do know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, so it says here, new research shows that single men lead healthy, fulfilling lives that are full of friends, sensitivity, and resilience, something that flies in the face of research that holds up marriage and family as the healthiest option for men. Well, that's a bunch of nonsense. You know how many guys I know that are unhappy in their marriages? It always is kind of a range between guys just simply being bored and living with their wives as like a roommate or a buddy, to being outright miserable. And it's really unfortunate that it is that way. I've said before, I have a few friends and I've known a few people in my life that are actually happy in their marriages, like you can just tell, but it's extremely rare, extremely rare. I was fortunate that both my parents, they were as happy as I think you can get. I grew up in a pretty good household. I was very fortunate with that. I've read a lot of comments that think that people think I grew up in the worst household ever. Not true at all. The following studies explain exactly what these eternal bachelors are in for. All right, starts off here saying, single men are rich in friendship. Single men are not necessarily isolated basement dwellers. In fact, they're significantly more likely than married men to have several close friends. 1 in 8 men reports having no friends at all, and a lot of these men are married with kids. Yeah. Despite the research that shows that friendships help people live longer lives, stave off cognitive decline, and increase general well-being. Guy friends are a precious public health commodity that single men have covered. Yeah, let me tell you, all my guy friends, my best friends, these guys are my brothers. These are my family. And I am fortunate enough to have really good, reliable friends that there's no drama, no BS. They have my back. If I need to hear something, they'll tell me about it. There's no sugarcoating, supportive, loyal, the kind of friends you want to have. Want to have things I want to do, goals I want to achieve. They got my back. They don't say it's stupid, dude. They think it's cool. And I can't imagine life without that. And so a lot of guys that are single, they obviously have a lot more friends. And unfortunately, what happens to a lot of guys is once they get married, they have their buddies, but the dynamic changes because they tend to start hanging out with other married people because birds of a feather flock together. It's really true. And also, let's be honest here, there are a lot of married women that they don't like their husbands hanging out with the single guy friends because the single guy friends usually are dating and hooking up with other women, and they don't like that rubbing off on their husbands. It happens. I've seen it before. And of course, also a lot of the wives want the guys all to themselves. That's another thing. And these guys mistakenly distance themselves from their buddies when they should really have that good time away from their wives, when the wife can be out with her friends doing her thing and he can be doing his thing. It's very healthy. In any relationship, whether it's marriage or just two people have an exclusive relationship, it's extremely important that both the man and the woman, or if it's a gay or lesbian couple, woman and woman, man and man, they have their time to do their own hobbies and interests and things like that. That I can tell you through a lot of life experience. So normally I don't talk about that subject, but I'm being honest here. Okay, next up, she says, this is where she starts going back on the thing about being healthy for guys. She says, but poor in money. What single men gain in friends, they lose in money. Studies show men who stay unmarried make anywhere from 10 to 40% less than married men. There's evidence that fathers make up 21% more than men without children. Those studies also suggest men with wives and kids work longer hours and put up with more workplace BS than single men. Now, this does not mean marriage and parenthood cause financial success. And in parentheses, she says, though anecdotally, that sure doesn't sound right. Indeed, other research argues that men are simply more likely to get married and have kids when their income is already rising. Either way, you're unmarried, childless bachelor friends are probably making less money than you are. Well, first and foremost, a lot of guys that are single and aren't married, don't have kids, and don't want to be, and I can tell you from my own personal experience, obviously, they work hard. They're busting their butts to do well because by doing well and being successful, they make more money, and therefore that money can help them have a better quality of life and enjoy the finer things. Just because you're not married doesn't mean you have to be sitting on your butt playing video games all the time. Now, however, I will say this, that there are also single guys that don't make as much as fathers and husbands because obviously they don't have the same responsibilities and things they got to take care of. So you could have a guy that's obviously working harder, obviously to take care of his family, which I respect. Or maybe on the weekends he's doing some Uber driving to make extra cash for the kids. And I totally respect that. But at the end of the day, that father, even if he's making more than, say, his single friends, that father is spending a lot more money on his family, his wife, his kids, all those things that are associated with that. Meanwhile, the single guy, he doesn't have those expenses. And you may be surprised to find that guy, the father, at the end of the day, after all those expenses are taken care of, he has less to show for it after all the money's being spent. So the single guy may actually, even though he's making less, may have more money to put away in his IRAs or his savings accounts or to spend on things he likes for himself. So that's something to consider here. But just to say that guys aren't going to obviously make a lot more money when they're single, that's not true at all. Come on here. It's not for me. The next one, you guys are going to get a laugh at this. She says, single men commit more crimes. Marriage reduces the likelihood that men will commit crimes, studies suggest. Where do they get these studies from? And data indicates that becoming a father quells criminal impulses even further. In societies with a disproportionate number of single men who cannot marry or have children, either as a result of polygamy or uneven sex ratios, we tend to see higher crime rates. higher rates of extremism, and more time at war across the board. Okay, just because we're single does not mean that we're going to go out and rob a 7-Eleven on the weekend or hold up a bank. Come on here. Now, what guys may do is that if guys don't have the same responsibilities if they're being married and have kids, they may likely be a little more adventurous. Like, you might be more inclined if you're single to own a motorcycle and go riding on the weekends, which obviously is more dangerous. We all know that. Or you might do something more like going skydiving or something like that. Much more dangerous activities. But the idea that we're going to be more likely to commit more crimes, that's ridiculous. She goes on, but bachelors are more sensitive to feelings of judgment and regret. When men cannot have their own biological children due to fertility problems, studies suggest, and again, I want to know where these studies come from, they may experience a period of bereavement and regret. And when they cannot have children because they can't find partners, they're more likely to be judged by others and more likely to lash out. Okay, that's a bunch of nonsense. Generally speaking, it is women that are obviously upset and bothered when they fear being judged by others because at a certain point that they don't have a man or a husband or kids or things like that. By and large, guys, A, aren't judged for that, and B, if they were, don't care. It goes on to say, the perception of being judged for the inability to marry and have kids has stoked the rise of a dangerous group of extremists, listen to this, who refer to themselves as involuntary celibates or incels, a number of whom have orchestrated mass shootings. Married dads are far less likely to feel disenfranchised, at least in this way. Just because you have a bunch of guys that don't have anything to do with women or become incels does not mean that they are going to commit these atrocities. That's a bunch of crap. Do not go pointing your finger and saying such things. That's ridiculous. They simply don't want to deal with all the drama and all the BS. Goes on to say, being single doesn't necessarily mean being lonely. The good news for bachelors is that scientists are starting to suspect they've underestimated the upsides of being alone. Gee, you think? Despite warnings of a loneliness epidemic, what loneliness epidemic? Are you kidding me? It's the exact opposite. Single men without children report deeper connections with friends, parents, and other family members, as well as to their work. Single people have a heightened sense of self-determination and are more likely to continue growing as people, one study found. Well, that is an accurate study. Bachelors also may demonstrate more emotional self-sufficiency, especially when it comes to dealing with negative emotions. Yeah. Being single, for so many guys, I say majority of guys that obviously have been on the other side, is great. They know it's like the other option. Goes on, but it still isn't entirely clear what it does mean for the individuals. The preoccupation with the perils of loneliness can obscure the profound benefits of solitude. Bella DiPaolo, a scientist at the University of California, Santa Barbara, told the American Psychological Association. And she's quoted as saying, "It is time for a more accurate portrayal of single people and single life, one that recognizes the real strengths and resilience of people who are single and what makes their lives so meaningful." Yeah, I like that comment there because that's accurate. And as time goes on and more people are recognizing that marriage in no way, shape, or form is what it's cracked up to be, you're going to have more and more single people. And here's the thing, it isn't just going to be guys, it's also going to be women. I said the other day in another video, I have a personal training client. She's 51, been married twice, realized it wasn't what it cracked up to be, and now she's doing whatever she wants, whenever she wants. Prior to the pandemic and being stuck at home, she was going out on dates, many dates a week, having guys come out of state for her. She was getting tons of being hit up all the time on the dating apps and things like that. She's happy and having a good time. And so I want everybody to have a good time and be happy, because you got a whole world of unhappy people being sold this lie about the joy and love and of a marriage. It's just not true. So, all right, guys, thought that was a good article to share. Be sure to like the video, comment down below what you think about this, and share with your friends, and subscribe. And I will talk to you next time.